And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call. Tonight, we rewatched your number 2 seeded Indiana Hoosiers defeat the number 7 seed LSU Tigers and Shaquille O'Neal 94-87 to advance to the Sweet 16 in the 1992 NCAA tournament. The victory was Indiana's 25th, and this marks the 4th time in the last 6 seasons that the Hoosiers have reached that number of victories, and Indiana's Sweet 16 appearance will be its 3rd in its last 4 seasons. This win matches up Indiana with Florida State next week in the Sweet 16 as Florida State defeated Georgetown 78-63 earlier this afternoon. The other side of the bracket will be determined tomorrow as number 1 UCLA takes on number 8 Louisville, and the upset side of the bracket, number 12, New Mexico State, takes on 13th seed Southeast Louisiana. I'm your host, Brian Tonsoni, here with Ryan Phillips and Scott Caulfield from the Crimson Cast, and we will break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call post-game show. And let's start this show the way we start every show, and that's with our banner moment. Tonight's banner moment occurred when I turned on the TV and saw that Dale Brown was coaching for LSU. At that moment, I knew Indiana was going to win. A little bit of credit to Coach Knight for that. The actual banner moment occurred with 2:42 left in the game when Calbert Cheaney caught the ball in the middle of the lane against the LSU zone defense and attacked the rim, and Shaquille O'Neal scored and was fouled. The ensuing free throw increased Indiana's lead to 79-72 and broke the game open after LSU had cut it to 3 just moments earlier. Calbert hit big shot after big shot all night long on his way to 30 points. That is our banner moment. And speaking of our banner moment, we're really, as always, it's brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, a company that was founded by an IU grad and remains based in Indianapolis. They may have 60-plus different schools available on their website, but Indiana was their first school, and they remain huge supporters of Indiana athletics. So that's one reason to support Home Field Apparel. But the 2 most important reasons to shop Home Field are comfortable, even after being washed, and unique. Logos you can't find anywhere. And it's always nice to tune in and see your co-host wearing Home Field Apparel sweatshirt, and we all have it. I just ordered 4 T-shirts because of what Connor and the guys are doing for their workers. And remember, because you're a member of Assembly Call audience, you'll get a massive discount when you order at homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code Assembly20 at checkout to get 20% off your entire order. That's Assembly20 for 20% off your order. Go to homefieldapparel.com today and get the most unique and comfortable IU apparel anywhere. Okay, it's time now to move the ball, find the open man, stop the music, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And this is going to be a good one, folks. Buckle up. It is now starting. Ryan, your thoughts on this victory tonight by your Indiana Hoosiers?
You know what was really nice to see was for something we haven't seen in a long time, I think, at Indiana. And I know we're supposed to be broadcasting this as if it's live, so we'll go back to that. But leadership from the upperclassmen, I thought, in the first half, things weren't going well for Indiana. Guys like Calbert Cheaney, Jamal Meeks, Matt Nover, Eric Anderson, all stepping up and making some big shots to kind of keep Indiana in the game. They got some from Alan Henderson, who's a freshman as well, but it felt like that core group kind of gave everybody else confidence, that upperclassman group. I mean, Jamal Meeks was a senior who hadn't played much. He stepped up, hit a big 3, and then played some good defense on the other end. Eric Anderson, senior. Calbert Cheaney, junior. Matt Nover, a junior. Again, you're seeing those older, more mature guys kind of step up. Damon Bailey, sophomore, didn't have a great game, but other guys really stepped up and played well and made up for the mistakes that other guys made. And it just felt like a full team effort. I know that everyone's going to remember Calbert going for 30 points and 8 rebounds in 38 minutes against Shaq, and that was sort of the key battle sort of on the inside, and how he was using his quickness and guile to get around Shaq and score, whereas Shaq was just overpowering people. But I really thought it was important that the other guys all stepped up as well. You had 19 points from Alan Henderson, again a freshman, but then you had 13 from Matt Nover, 12 from Anderson. And then just to keep the ball moving against that zone at the top, as the backcourt had a really bad game, they kept the ball moving, hit the high post area of the zone a lot, caused it to collapse, and then got guys in the corners, got guys inside. Just really a smart game plan from Indiana, and it was nice to see that leadership on the court, sort of allowing the team to sort of function properly throughout. They didn't get out of shape. They were down 14 early, didn't get bent out of shape, just kept attacking the zone. They knew they could attack the zone in certain areas and kept going to it, and LSU never stopped them. And it was basically sort of, this is what we're going to do, prove you can stop us. And LSU couldn't, and I just felt it was led by that sort of upperclassmen group, got everybody in the right position and executed. And I thought that was the story of the game, was LSU was based completely around one guy doing one thing in the post, whereas Indiana sort of had a balanced leadership and a balanced attack, looking at multiple angles and ways to defeat that zone on offense. And I thought they did a really good job. And also kudos to Coach Knight for throwing out a bunch of different defenses on Shaq to sort of, I know the guy wound up with 36 and 12. Also shot 12 from the free throw line, so who could have seen that coming? But he wound up with 36 points. But they also, a lot of times as they were trying to throw it in there, you saw an extra defender drop down there and grab the steal and kind of make it difficult. And then sort of, at the end, sort of daring LSU to shoot threes. So it was a really good game plan. Indiana stuck to it and attacked, and I really thought that those upperclassmen were at the front of that.
And now introducing our third member of the panel from Crimson Cast, Scott Caulfield, your thoughts on Indiana's victory tonight over those LSU Tigers?
Hey, guys, super excited to be on. Thanks for having me. It's a great win. Here's the thing, coming down the end of the stretch, you had this, IU team, which we all knew was really good, but, they lost 4 road games the back half of the Big Ten, 2 of which to a Purdue and a Minnesota team that were 8-10, which probably cost us the 1 seed in the Southeast bracket, which went to Ohio State. And it's annoying because then we get this team in LSU who, I got to pull it up, like they were 12-10 overall, but 21-10 overall, but 12-4 in the SEC, 25th ranked. You got a beast in Shaq. I mean, this is just a brutal regional we get pushed out to.
Yeah, how are they ranked that low?
I know. Well, Dale, talk to Bill Walton. He'll tell you about Dale Brown being a bad coach. We'll get to that. But I gotta agree with a lot what Ryan said. This was a team that you could not have started this game worse. You're down 27-13. I'd be hitting the reset button if I was playing my Nintendo with double dribble. Got to remember we're in 92. But double dribble is a tough game. No 2-3 zone in there. But their 2-3 zone, we looked like we weren't quite sure what to do against it. You had Shaq going nuts. He had 2 dunks, 3 blocks. We're kind of at the early point running everything through Matt Nover, who looks like he's scared. I would be too. Shaq's a freaking monster. But we come back, Shaq goes out, and then really LSU goes nuts on D. They start cheating on everything. We know exactly, credit again to this team to go exactly to the right spot. They go to the wings, they start shooting there. But then you also have moments where, we never really put this LSU team away. You get down into the second half, it's 47-all. Bailey hits a huge 3. We'll get to him a little bit later. But, even with a couple minutes left, it gets down to 73-70 with 4 minutes to go. You have a couple of big plays. Again, Damon Bailey coming up huge. You have the move by Cheaney you mentioned. And really, when the going got tough, we were able to make the better plays. I also got to say, too, last thing is that our ability to kind of hold the game, I think at some point in the future, I would love it if somebody had some kind of points per possession or be able to know the pace of games or there's got to be a way to do this. I'm sure Bill Walton's going to be all over that. But, I look at the way that we slowed the game down, even though there was a lot of points, we were very, diligent with the ball, a lot of pump fakes. We slowed it down. The few times LSU got in the transition, Singletary was fantastic. They were able to post up Shaq early. We stopped LSU from getting into transition. We stopped everything they could do. We still let Shaq get his. So no, it's a great game. And now, we go up against the complete opposite. Again, this is a brutal, we got to go in Florida State with all their guards and, Sam Cassell and Bobby's and Sura and maybe Charlie Ward if he comes back from injury. But no, just a great game by a good team. I think it's going to have a great run this year.
Yeah, I was telling my fiance Amy that the pace of the game was going to be one thing to watch, and I was kind of shocked that both teams were shooting, not quickly as you mentioned, Scott, but yet there was a lot of points, a lot of shots, and never any late shot clock situations. Shots got put up with ease on both sides. And, in fact, at times I think it played into Indiana's hand that LSU took some quick shots instead of reversing it 2 or 3 times and throwing it in inside to Shaquille. So let's talk about this. And it was mentioned Indiana's defense on Shaquille O'Neal, I thought it was really outstanding, and there was a variety of ways, but they were really playing off the shooters. And at one time, LSU was 12 of 15. And that's when it was 27-13. And that shows the genius of Coach Knight as well, is let them get their shots and feel comfortable, and that couldn't always – that shooting percentage couldn't be maintained. Scott, your thoughts on the defense on Shaquille in the first half. What changed in the second half when he did go off a little bit more, or was it just him finding his footing?
I think what it was, there was just the few times that they were able to get the ball to him was either he set up very early in the post on transition, or there was a couple times where either Graham or Meeks didn't roll. IU was basically playing a 3-2 zone with the two guys just on Shaq and the third guy always coming back. But there were times where, LSU would do a good job, like you said, of rotating the ball, or Shaq would just get a good post. The guy's a stud. He'd get a good post up and they'd get it. It's weird because on one hand, they seemed to hit him every time he was open. On the other hand, I felt like they were never looking for him, and Singletary and Caesar were taking these shots without looking in. But, I think what happened is just you just can't keep a dude like that down. We have a good front line, but we don't have, a dude like Shaq. And so I think we did about as well as we could do. And I think that, there came a point, it's we're just going to let them, get it in on. But honestly, I don't think we did anything different. I just think that LSU was able to exploit the few times where they were able to rotate the ball and our defense wasn't able to rotate enough around him. And mostly when Shaq was scoring, it's when he was on one-on-one coverage with Nover, or maybe 1 and 1 by 1.5 with him and Greg Graham.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say this. I think that Bill Walton is completely wrong saying that Shaq should come back for another year. What else does that guy have to prove? Come on. He might be a top 15 pick. No, I think that Shaq, a few times what happened is they would have a double team on him. He would turn around like he was going to go to the other block, and then you'd cut back real quick and you'd find some creases there. He's a real innate ability to find those open spaces. For a guy that big, he's pretty quick. And so he was finding sort of, and also look, he's big and strong. He was pushing guys around a little bit to where, so there's only so much you can do defensively there. And I think that coming out of the second half, I think that he was energized. And I think that the directive from the coach must have been just get him the ball and let him go to work. And, he got it sometimes in a crowd and would still power his way to a basket. And I thought that was just an example of how great he was. It wasn't a knock on Indiana's defense. Indiana was doing everything it could, throwing multiple looks, throwing multiple guys, rotating guys on him, getting a front and somebody in the back. And, really just it was clear their game plan was to make it difficult to get it in there, make Shaq work for those points. Now, he got 36 points, but he definitely worked for them, and he had to go get 12 of them at the line. So
yeah, and I got to hit on that too. Part of the reason he did well in the second half is we were fouling him. We were going at him, and you should. He's a 50% free throw shooter, and the guy went 12 for 12 on the line. I have a feeling in retrospect, and this might be an interesting game people look back on in 5 or 10 years, that you stop Shaq, but he also goes 12 for 12 from the line. Honestly, that's what kept he was so productive because we were just hacking him.
Yeah.
You know what? Wait. If he does go pro, that should be a strategy, hacking Shaq.
I don't think so, man. He would
not after tonight.
What you would call it. You might be right. Maybe you shouldn't do that in the pros. Yeah, maybe it's a new league. But no, it's they were doing what he should do. It's they were just fouling the heck out of him, but he was still scoring. I just don't think in a lot of games he's going to go 12 for 12 from the line.
That's fair. No, but I think that as far as you look at it, I think Indiana had the right strategy, executed that strategy. And it's currently with a guy like Michael Jordan in the NBA, God, you let him get his points, but you make sure nobody else really steps up and can continually beat you. And you saw late in the second half, Indiana was daring anybody on LSU to shoot the ball and really did a good job. And you're right that right off the bat, LSU was knocking everything down. It looked like, all right, if they're going to shoot like this, the game's over. You have no chance against a team that shoots like that. But water finds its level. They came back down to earth. And then it was basically the second half was all Shaq and nobody else really stepping up. And Indiana played it perfectly, I thought, from then on.
Well, they were very physical.
In the first 5 minutes, they're down 14-7, and Shaq has only touched the ball once. That's nuts. He only has 6 points, and they're up, 27-13. That's the amazing start for LSU.
Yeah, they were very physical most of his work in the second half. they were very physical with him in the post, pushing and shoving. LSU made a good adjustment, putting him on the move a little bit more, block to block, and trying to move him, a little bit out further. But what Indiana did was mess with the psyche of LSU. Do I shoot? Do I pass? Coach said the emphasis at halftime is to throw it into Shaquille, but now I'm wide open, and that's just enough to mess with a group. And they got hot early, but then cooled off, and Indiana was able to hold off. Before we go into our second segment, I'd like to ask you guys about the bench play. I thought Jamal Meeks came in and Eric Anderson came in that first half when Indiana was struggling down 27-13, and both of them kind of calmed Indiana down. Anderson hit some big shots, especially on the baseline, because the wings in that zone, which we'll talk about a little bit later, were playing so high. But I thought the bench play really gave Indiana a spark tonight. Ryan, your thoughts on those two specifically?
Yeah, and especially in that first half where LSU was so hot and got up about 14, you saw Meeks come in and hit a three. You saw Anderson hit some big jumpers, and to come in and provide as a pair of seniors and the two captains to come in and provide that lift. And then I thought Meeks played really well defensively the rest of the game, kind of making it difficult on LSU to take those shots because he was there. He was helping out, and he didn't get chased off screens and things like that. He was always in the right position. And, a guy who had kind of been in the doghouse and not playing well not playing much because other players had surpassed him on the depth chart, came in and played, 30-something minutes. And really, that was 32 minutes. And that was a surprise, especially with a guy like Greg Graham that wound up basically getting relegated to the bench and only playing 12. So, and Chris Reynolds too only played 10. So he really stepped up as the guard that was sort of the guy who was holding everything together. And, Damon Bailey played 28. So it was basically those two guys in the backcourt for most of the game. And I thought that just those guys stepping up off the bench, the Anderson and Meeks, and showing some of that, as I said in my intro, veteran sort of mentality of let's just stick with the plan. Let's follow our game plan and it'll all work out. And just keeping everybody calm. That was a huge part of Indiana sort of starting that comeback in the first half. And of course, they were down 14. They raced out and had a lead at halftime. It wasn't like this was a slow comeback that happened over two periods of play. They raced right back ahead. And I thought those two guys were a huge part of it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you mentioned the bench because, IU's only got 10 guys on this team, but they only played 8 today. Leary and Lindemann didn't play. I guess, Lindemann against Shaq probably isn't a fair play.
Would have been funny, though. Would have been funny.
That would have been awesome. That would have been great for at least a minute and a half. But on the flip side, Louisiana State plays 13 guys. A couple of them were at the end there. But no, I thought that was interesting when I looked at the box score. It's like you only had 8 guys. And like you mentioned, Chris Reynolds only played 10 minutes. Graham only played 12. But Coach, you mentioned, Eric Anderson. He comes in right about when Shaq leaves in the beginning of the second half. He hits a three. He then starts finding, what LSU starts doing on defense, what I thought was interesting, is that 2-3 zone. It was amazing how different it was when Shaq was in and when he wasn't. When he was out, they had no idea how to kind of manage the zone. The two guys in the bottom on the wings were just cheating everything. And maybe they were trying to do that to try and get transition and get things moving, but they were cheating to the point that the baseline jumper was just wide open. And both Eric Anderson and Alan Henderson just exploited that the rest of the first half. And that's when we made a run. Spot. Yeah. But Anderson came in, did a great job. Henderson, was doing great at that. But I thought it was interesting. You basically only had 8 guys play, and of those 6 only had really, over 13 minutes, where you saw, LSU kind of rotating all these guys in. The bench was important, but in a way, it was kind of like Meeks was a starter, and you had a couple guys playing a little bit, but you basically had a 6-man rotation. This is a tight rotation for tonight.
Yeah, and I'd also, before we go to a break, I'd like to talk a little bit about Matt Nover. You mentioned he was a little nervous. I would be nervous, too, going up against Shaq, but I did think that getting the ball inside was very, very important early because it kept Shaq at the rim. And part of the baseline opening up was that Shaq wasn't coming out. When the forward would take the first pass and then a guard would throw down to the short corner, Shaq's not coming out. And when you hit the ball inside, the first 3, one was a block and a turnover travel, but it showed Shaq that we were going to come at you, and he stayed in that block, and it opened up for Henderson and Anderson later. And Nover hit some big shots. So Matt Nover had a heck of a start to that game, and he's got to be in did they I don't know if jacuzzis are invented yet, but an ice bath or a warm bath there for staying inside the bit here. But he got bruised and battered all night. But Matt Nover, I thought, was a key to that first half.
Yeah, and he was posting up in the middle of the paint too, instead of going, on a block one side or the other. He was posting up right in the middle, so you have an option to go one way or the other. On a great shot blocker, you have to have that option. And instead of just pinning yourself to one side where he can go straight up and block it, from that one angle. And I thought Matt Nover, yeah, he was turning around shooting some fadeaways and stuff to get away from Shaq. But, he sort of got comfortable. As Scott mentioned, he was kind of uncomfortable early. He sort of got comfortable, started hitting a few of those, short in jumpers. And then his ability in there, as you said, opened up the wings, because those sort of wing defenders kind of sucked in a little bit. He also kicked it out a few times to wings and was moving the ball around. I thought he played a great game. And I thought really he, again, along with those other guys, was a key to sort of stabilizing things in the first half by just being able to turn around and put the ball in the hoop. And that's especially from the post, from the front court against a really good, defender there. The ability to just put the ball in the hoop and feel some confidence, it was huge.
No, and I like the fact that Nover kept at it. He did look scared in the beginning. He kept at it and kept saying with the same shots. He had those turnarounds. But I will say this, and we're deep into this pod already. It's crazy we're now talking about it, but you just have to be amazed at the poise and how good Calbert Cheaney is. I mean, he never looks scared. He's going at Shaq. Early in the first half, he goes in and just has a couple little layups. He obviously has that great one in the second half, near the end of the game, the little left-handed layup where I'm not sure people forgot he's left-handed, and he goes up, gets the and one.
He shot one over his head at one point that went in.
He's hitting the right spots in the zone. And like I was telling Coach before we started, it's like, you watch this game, and you're like, Anderson has a couple big threes. Like, Bailey's on fire. Like, Nover's playing well. You look up, you're like, Cheaney has 28 points. It's like, I didn't even notice he was like having a good game. Yeah. And then it's just like, the dude is really, really good. By the way, screw you, Walt. Like, why aren't we talking about him going pro? Like, I know O'Neal's good, but it's like, I hope he comes back. Like, I really, if Cheaney could come back, this team could really do something special. I hope everyone stays healthy and Alan Henderson doesn't get injured. But a lot of good things could happen with this team. But no, Cheaney.
Jared Morris just died inside after you said that.
Good, I know it's.
Hey, well, we're gonna talk a lot more about Calbert Cheaney coming up as we continue here. Our breakdown of Indiana's victory over the LSU Tigers in the 1992 second round. I will point out the meaningful moment you might have missed, and we'll go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hi, this is James Blackman Jr. I never miss an open three, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call. Join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm the coach, Brian Tonsoni, here with Ryan Phillips and guest Scott Caulfield from Crimson Cast, and we are breaking down Indiana's win over LSU tonight in the second round of the 1992 NCAA tournament. It's time for today's meaningful moment that you might have missed. There's several. I'm going to point out this one. We've already talked about Jamal Meeks, so we don't have to talk a lot about it, but Indiana was starting to make a comeback, and they got back to within 6 or 7, and Shaq got a rebound underneath, and he went to go back up, and Jamal Meeks was underneath there, stuck his hand out, got a steal, and the break was started for Indiana, and Indiana was able to even shorten the lead. I think LSU was up at that time, 27-21, and Indiana was making their comeback. Those are little things that you see. That's an easy basket. If Shaq just goes up, he's just going to go up and score. And for Meeks to stick his hand in there and get that steal, I thought that was an important moment. And I thought Indiana did a lot of those things defensively with deflections, that awful word, and charges taken at key moments of the game for a meaningful moment. Scott, a meaningful moment that you thought someone might have missed during the game tonight?
I would say, I don't want to steal one of them, Damon Bailey's three in the second half The game gets tied 47-47. Shaq is like, my notes are Shaq is heating up. Like Shaq is starting to post up. To your point, Coach, he's hitting both sides of the lane. They're starting to find him. And then at that point, he hits a three, which gets us back to the lead. I think that's kind of that point in the game, middle, late, 8 minutes to go in the second half, where if they get a lead and they start kind of pushing on, I still think we win because we have the leadership, but they would have gotten a little bit tighter and a little bit tougher, especially with Shaq shooting free throws the way he did. Bailey hit another huge three later in the game at 73-70, but I think that three at 47-47 was huge. His first shot of the game. So I would pick that one because maybe people might have missed it at that point in the middle of the second half.
Ryan?
Yeah, I think that this just gets missed in a game because, it's sort of downtime in a game, but Indiana was 23-26 from the free throw line. I mean, that's huge. And those points add up, especially when Shaq's hitting 12 of 12. And especially late. I thought they really stepped to the line and hit their free throws. And when LSU was trying to foul and maybe make a run back. And, with the way they shot early, they were certainly capable of making a comeback. If you're not going to make your free throws and extend that lead, they're certainly capable of knocking down some shots and making it uncomfortable. And Indiana didn't do that, stuck to it, and made their free throws at the line. So 23-26 was big. And 9 of 9 from Calbert, too.
I'm going to bring up.
When he got to the line, he finished.
I'm going to bring up a couple moments that I think people saw and probably will remember, but they're very meaningful moments. I think it was right around, I think I have it written down, 10-19. Calbert Cheaney gets the ball in the lane. His back is to the basket, and he goes up and flips it over his head, over Shaq for two. That's just a big-time play. And Scott was talking about Cheaney, so maybe now's our time to even talk more about the great game that Calbert Cheaney had. And then even more so, Bailey hits that second three. And Indiana's up 6. Shaquille gets a basket. It's back to 4, 74-70 or 76-72. And then Cheaney goes right at Shaquille O'Neal again in the lane, splits 2 and gets an and 1. And now Indiana's back up 7. And that was just enough breathing room after the lead narrowed down to 3. So that play by Calbert, the play at 10 minutes, just really good. Not only shooting is he silky smooth, but he wasn't afraid, even after getting blocked once or twice by Shaquille, to take it at him in key moments. And so I thought those were very meaningful moments from Calbert Cheaney.
I got one other one. We mentioned, Bob Knight's ability to change the defense. I'll kind of flip this around a little bit. I thought an interesting, meaningful moment was, it's funny. You listen to this broadcast and they are just crushing Dale Brown. Like it starts in the first half.
From the opening
halftime,
tip. Yeah,
I know. And then they can't even get to they're too busy talking about like the Knights comments, and they go to halftime, which is great. It's like Mike Francesa's there. Francesa's crushing them. They come back, they crush him like all the second half. But I will say, at near the end of the game, it's like 79-72. LSU switches to man-to-man and actually looks like they're kind of screwing up our offense. Like we're trying to hold the ball and pump fake, but it's like we're and again, like I know it was like one possession, so it's not, over time it would have looked good, but I would say a meaningful moment is maybe Dale Brown not being a great coach tonight and never changing out of that 2-3 zone all game. Like the one time they did it, I'm like, oh God, like thank God we're already up 81-72, because like we don't look like we're ready to handle this kind of pace. And if they were doing that with transition and getting Shaq posted up early in offensive set, like maybe they have a better shot at winning. But yeah, I was shocked that he never tried moving out of the 2-3 zone at any time during the game because it worked so well in that last possession.
Ryan,
crazy.
Why was that zone so bad?
It was because they weren't executing it correctly. And because, look, there are ways to beat a zone. You beat a zone in the middle and you beat a zone on the outside. And with Indiana's ability to knock down.
Hey, can you write that down? I feel like some point in 2013, we're going to need that information. So could you please write that down somewhere in Assembly Hall, like on a notepad or something?
I'll just spray paint it on the wall. It's like, it is unbelievable that they didn't change their defense when it was clear it wasn't working. In Indiana, the way you beat a zone, A, you shoot over it, or B, you attack the middle. And when you attack the middle, the zone collapses and you can hit the baselines or the wings. It will get wide open looks. And if you're knocking down those shots, you're going to destroy that zone. I mean, that's stuff you learn in the first day of high school basketball is go to the high post. Everybody collapses to the ball then, and you kick it to the sides. I mean, I'm sure watching that zone offense from Indiana, I'm sure Coach was absolutely loving it. back then. But it's a very simple way to attack a zone. And when you're getting beat on it constantly, either A, you switch from a 2-3 to a 3-2, so your wings can drop down further, or you change to man-to-man and you attack the ball handler and allow Shaq to basically float in the middle of the court as your rim protector. You do one of those two things. You have to. You cannot sit there and get beat by short corner jumpers all night or by, middle of the paint jumpers. Indiana was too good a shooting team for LSU to stick in this that long. And it was a gift that Indiana got, that when they started beating this, LSU did not adjust. There was no timeout. All right, we're going to man-to-man. We'll run this man-to-man for 5 minutes, see what happens. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to zone, whatever. And I just thought it was a really poor – I mean, I hate to pile on Dale Brown. God knows he's a Hall of Famer. But it's one of those things where, like, you watching this unfold, and it's like watching a train wreck because you know exactly what you need to do to fix it. And that's, get the other train off the tracks and you can fix it. But instead, he just kept going. And it I don't know. It was insane. And Indiana just abused it all night.
Indiana's ability to hit shots was tremendous tonight. Just, whether
that
it be
won
on
the
the
game.
baseline, the nice little move where Cheaney was flashing middle, and then he just cut to the weak side elbow and got a pass from, I believe, Meeks, and hit a 15-footer right at the free throw elbow with no one within any space around him. But their ability to shoot the basketball was really important, and that's probably how you got to beat a guy like Shaquille when he's hanging around the basket and swatting shots and changing shots down low, is to be able to hit shots. So those are some meaningful moments. It's now time to go inside the numbers and pick out a few key stats. We talked free throw shooting for Indiana. How about the free throw shooting for LSU with Shaquille O'Neal 12 for 12 coming into the game, 50% on the season? You would think that would be, as we mentioned earlier, a better strategy. And then I just thought I'd like to, again, go back and just talk a little bit more specifically about Calbert. We look up and he has 30. And when Shaq gets his 30-plus points because they're throwing it in and fouls called, but Calbert was inside, free throw line, three-point shot, shot fake, just a great all-around effort by Calbert Cheaney to score 30 points and lead Indiana tonight.
Well, and he shot 1 from 5 from 3. He he had a great game, but he still left points on the table. I think for the season, he's been I only have 85 tabs open on I'm using something called the internet. I don't know how long we can keep the 93 thing going. But he shot 38% from 3 all year, and so he was 1 for 5. He probably could have had 36 points.
2 of those rimmed out too. They're actually pretty good shots. No, what I thought was interesting about Calbert versus Shaq, if you're going to compare those two and their games, which you can, they were the 2 best players on the floor, was that it felt like Shaq was the offense for LSU, whereas Calbert was getting his offense through the offense as like a part of the offense. It was he was attacking when he had a chance to attack, in a position to attack. It wasn't he caught the ball and then went to work. It was he was getting the ball in a chance to score and went up. And I felt like Indiana really worked as a cohesive unit. That offense was run very well, and guys were attacking when they had the chance to attack. And you didn't see a whole lot of forcing, except for a few three-point shots. You really didn't see a whole lot of forcing shots in this game. And I thought that was really impressive. I thought Bailey, the 2 threes that he missed, he's Damon Bailey, so you're fine with him taking them. But I thought that two of the threes that he shot were just, there's nobody that close to me. Let me just shoot it, and it wasn't like the perfect time in the offense to do it. So I really think that was the dichotomy of what was going on offensively with these two teams. And Coach, to your point about the free throws, for LSU, Shaq was 12 of 12. As a team, they were 12 of 13. Only one other player shot a free throw. That was really impressive, Indiana, not to foul shooters. Don't give them that extra chance to get a bucket. Don't foul a three-point shooter. Don't foul a guy on a bad, off-balance layup. That kind of stuff. Really important to keep into check, especially when a team is struggling offensively other than one player. Don't give them a chance to get right.
Any other stats that stick out to either of you that helped Indiana tonight? Indiana got out-rebounded only by 3. I thought that was somewhat important with the size of the front line of LSU. I thought they did a nice job battling inside on the boards. But I thought it was an all-around effort by Indiana on both ends of the floor to methodically pull ahead and get the victory.
Also thought it was interesting, a stat that surprised me. Only 3 offensive rebounds for Indiana in the entire game. I know you're going up against Shaq, but you figure just some bad bounces will go your ways and you'll find one. But Alan Henderson had 2 and Calbert Cheaney had 1, and that was it. So it was really important for them to defend their own glass. And, LSU had a decent number of offensive rebounds, but Indiana minimized those second chance opportunities pretty well, I thought.
We're going to
also, can we just marvel at Shaq's line? I mean, he was 12 of 18, 12 of 12 from the free throw line, 36 points, 5 blocks, 12 rebounds, an assist, and 2 steals. I think he's going to be pretty good. I think he's going to be all right.
He's not bad. Maybe he should go pro.
Yeah, I think so.
We're going to talk a little bit more about our game balls and some other just takes about this game after this break. So coming up on the assembly call, we'll hand out those game balls. What aged best and worst from this game, and then try to put it in proper historical context. That's all next here on the assembly call. Stick with us.
This is Tim Priller, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call.
Thanks, Tim. You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night. And these game rewatches here for the next 2 weeks. You can follow us on our website, assemblycall.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for the free IU Hoops email newsletter. Over 7,000 of your fellow IU fans have subscribed. You can also text IU to 66866 to subscribe to the newsletter. That's IU to 66866. I'm the coach, Brian Tonsoni, here with Ryan Phillips and Scott Caulfield, and we are definitely out of our bit when we're talking about the internet and texting from a game in 1992, as I'm 4 months away from getting married. With a full head of hair. But so that was a fun couple segments. I'm proud of us for sticking in that for these 2 segments. So now we're going to.
Okay, Scott, hold on. I got to ask, Scott, what were you doing in 1992 when this was going on?
92, I was in high school in Bloomington South.
Wow.
So this was the spring of 92. Yeah, I was ending my freshman year at Bloomington South.
I was in 6th grade, and I watched this game, which is funny, out in San Diego. Watched this game because we were all obsessed with Shaq. And obviously we all knew who Calbert was. We knew who Damon Bailey was and, all the names and all that. So I was at a friend's house. We ordered pizza and watched this game.
And I watched the game with my dad in our living room. I remember that whole run through UCLA.
I was at a wedding shower, couple shower, watching this game in the basement of some people that I never knew. And I will say this. I will say this on the radio or on the podcast, but I will not go into detail. One of the most epic stories of my life happened that day, besides Indiana winning, and so that'll be shared off air with all of you at some point. But when
thank you.
When I was set to be on this show and I played it back and I started having those memories, I kind of got a couple chuckles. But let's get back to the game action. Game balls, Ryan. Who gets your game ball for tonight's victory by the Indiana Hoosiers?
Well, I can't give it to Shaq. So it's of course Calbert Cheaney. It's Calbert Cheaney. I thought some other guys had some really key games. You could give it to Alan Henderson for what he did in the first half. You really could. Him stepping up and knocking down shots was enormous. You could give it to the 2 captains if you wanted, Meeks and Anderson, for them stepping up in that key moment. But Calbert was just so good. And they were in the second half, he got into such a rhythm where he was just attacking Shaq. And you're just like, it's almost like when he started to make a movie, like, what are you doing? And then boom, you go right by him and score. And so, 30 points for Calbert, 8 rebounds. He was 10 of 18 from the field, 9 of 13 on twos. I mean, that's where you think you'd struggle in this game with Shaq down there in the post, but hit those and then hit not all 9 of his free throws. And God, that guy is such a sweet shot. Like he just did. Everything about his game was so smooth, and he was the perfect college basketball player. Like he really was. Decent size, could shoot it, could play inside out, grabbed rebounds, hustled, played hard, all of it. And to get 30 points in 38 minutes, attacking a monster like Shaq consistently, just fantastic game for Calbert.
Scott, who gets your game ball?
I want to go back in time and go ahead of Ryan so I can take Calbert too. No, I will. I will. I mean,
you're allowed to agree.
I'll agree. No. I mean, the answer is Calbert. I will give a full size game ball to Calbert. The mini size basketball, I would give it to Alan Henderson. I mean, Henderson also had a great game, 8 for 14 from the field. He isn't able to move I was honestly surprised watching how much Calbert played outside the three. Calbert played as a guard half the game. Henderson was your prototypical power forward, but he also was never scared of Shaq. Like he attacked Shaq. He was cutting the lane. And he was a
freshman too.
I know. So, I would say mini game ball to Allen, but I mean, Calbert Cheaney is just a great game. And even watching it, knowing he's going to have 30, I'm still like, how'd he get 30? Like, goddamn, he never had a moment where the game just flowed through him. He was such a good player.
I think it's pretty obvious that Calbert Cheaney gets the game ball for tonight. There's so many players that contributed tonight, and we've mentioned almost all of them. But you also have to give a big game ball or a game ball, whatever, clipboard or whatever to Coach Knight. His ability to teach offense was really evident here because while there were some actions that were put in and some designs, they ran 2 guys at the block once, but it was more just where players came from. But you could tell that Indiana was taught how to penetrate gaps, how to take a defender away from his zone defense and throw back against it, shot fakes, good fundamentals, and then also for Coach Knight defensively to just mess with LSU enough to get the victory. It's hard to stop a guy like Shaq, but I thought in a 2-day turnaround, Coach Knight put in a really good game plan, both offensively and defensively for your Indiana Hoosiers. So officially, Calbert Cheaney with the game ball. Isn't it nice, fellas, to watch a game and everyone does their role? Like Meeks and Reynolds weren't supposed to shoot, and Meeks takes 2 shots, one in the lane he missed and 1 3, but he hits that 3. And he wasn't trying to be anything but Jamal Meeks and what he could do for the Indiana Hoosiers. And you could say that for all of the guys who played, they came in and they played their role, and they did a great job. That's just fun to watch, and that's, again, what Indiana basketball is about.
Yeah, it was just a group of guys who had defined roles and either played to or exceeded them. I think other than Greg Graham, I would say that everybody had a pretty good game. I mean, at least, a decent showing. Graham obviously had an off game, but that happens, but I just feel like everybody did exactly what they were supposed to do and played smart, intelligent basketball and stuck with the game plan. How many times have we wanted to see that in the last few years? I mean, last 20 years, really, of just going into a game and consistently. Now, you get times where that happens, but you feel like those are exceptions to the rule. And it's really interesting to see just a bunch of high IQ basketball players doing exactly what they need to do and selflessly doing it. They weren't, all trying to attack on their own to make something happen. They were willing to pass the ball, willing to give it up, knowing that this was the way to beat the team they were playing. And I just thought it was really fun to watch, sort of a methodical, intelligent attack. And then defensively, a methodical, intelligent approach to the way you're guarding Shaq and the way you're guarding the rest of these guys. It was a fun game to watch.
No, it was nice to see us be the team that was composed and not making a bunch of mistakes and watching and waiting for another team like LSU to just make their mistakes. Like, honestly, we didn't start attacking the wing spots until LSU kind of started cheating. And it's like, it was great to see. It's like, hey, they're cheating there. We're just going to start going there and start shooting there. And then when they
make
went
them
back,
stop us.
Right. We started attacking the middle of the zone. Like, we just, whatever they gave us, we took. And it was fun to see. I mean, yeah. We should bring Coach Knight back.
All right, so we got a few more things to talk about tonight. Scott, this is going to come back to you. What about that court?
Okay, so can we do
it's yours, baby. It's all yours. Go with it.
I got a bunch of best and worst. I mean, first off, like the court's great. Like I love this is, Ryan, we're a little bit older. Like this is the way I remember. I loved when they had the courts when you watched. And what was great about it is you'd watch these tournaments and you'd watch like these sites and like, there'd be an upset. And like, oh yeah, I remember it's that court. And it's like courts would get hot like blackjack tables. Like you'd be like, oh yeah, like, the Boise State court, like it's hot this time. Like, they're going down. And first off, this court also sucks because I think this is the court where we lost to Missouri, who then Missouri lost to Tyus Edney and the UCLA team where he goes like coast to coast when they were defending champs.
I watched that one while it was happening. Yeah.
But I miss the courts. I miss this is the most iconic of those courts. Like I miss the fact the original courts are not there. Sorry, Coach, I'm taking over. The other best things from this, I have best and worst from this game. The CBS music. There was that stretch from like 85 to 92. The next year they went to like a weird digitized version of the song. That CBS basketball music was great. I was surprised there were so many more threes in this game. Like 3 and D was like a lot of threes were taken. I love Mike Francesa at halftime. That was just a great, like, dude, like Mike is a mad dog. Like I had no idea.
Wait, how funny was it? You turn it on and I had no idea who was going to be broadcasting it. It's Sean McDonough and Luke
Bill Walton.
By the way,
Bill Walton. Yeah,
I'm sorry, Luke. I knew Luke. Bill Walton and McDonough is like. By the way, he's still one of the best professional broadcasters, and Bill is like a sideshow now that everybody either loves or hates to watch. This was 30 years ago. I mean, it's so funny that like
it's like
those
6
guys
years
are still
after
doing it.
Walton retired. Like this is not that long after he retired.
But
the last thing that aged the best for me. Oh, go ahead. Good.
I'm going to say about Bill Walton. I'm not sure everything he said was really good, but his commentary was okay. He goes off on these tangents now on these games.
It's been long.
I like him, but a lot of people don't like him. But I thought he really was a commentator. Whether Shaq going pro or not is the right thing to say, but I thought he had some really good things to say about the game flow and how the zone was collapsing in, and I thought he really added something to the broadcast. When I first heard Walton, I thought, okay, we're going to hear about his bike. We're going to hear about, all this stuff that he does now.
The man's lived a hard 30 years, Coach.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of stuff in
I
there.
tune in now to live vicariously through Walton because, I was a goody two-shoes, if you believe that. And now to hear all his crazy stories, I don't tune in for basketball, but I thought he surprised me with his ability to talk basketball on this broadcast. Go ahead, Scott.
So
what else?
Scott, well, hold on. I gotta say, because you have been bringing this up, and I mean, Coach brought it up too, of course, off the top, was the Dale Brown thing. Just so people know, Dale Brown is a college basketball Hall of Famer who took LSU to 2 Final Fours. They won 4 SEC regular season titles, an SEC tournament title. He's a 4-time SEC Coach of the Year. And the whole program was just dumping on what a horrible coach he was. That was the whole point of the broadcast. Like,
I know the broadcast was like it's almost like Dale Brown stiffed them all like on a dinner, like that he went to dinner with them the night before, was like just left without paying the bill because like I have a list of things that did not age well.
Go ahead.
But we'll get to. But like no, that was one of them. Is that like it's so jarring because today all the broadcasters just kissing every coach's ass. Like, oh man, this guy's great. Like, you got Vitalik. Hey, Patino should get a job. Why don't you look at, getting Patino back? It's like, all right, man, the guy just, banged the chick on a salad bar. But, you got like, they're just crushing Dale Brown for like the entire game. It's like the whole pre-production meeting was like, hey, they got Shaq. They never talked about Cheaney. And then it's just like, hey, Dale Brown's like the worst coach has ever come out. Let's just crush that.
And then they brought up every time he did anything, like, I wouldn't have done that. It's like,
I know. Like honestly, he took Shaq out after 5 minutes. Like Shaq was dragging the whole team. It's like, yeah, you got to rest Shaq at some point. They're just like, that was awful. They go to halftime. Francesca's like, why take him out? Like everyone has in their ear, like everything he does is awful. It's great.
How about Billy Packer, who I think's bad too? But Billy Packer saying he made the same mistake in 1981 against Indiana when he took out a player. I'm like, Shaquille O'Neal was out for one offensive possession of Indiana. Meeks hit a 3.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like they scored inside. One possession at the 11-minute mark, and then they got him right back in.
Shaq's dragging a 290-pound body up and down the ground. He's gonna need to sit at some point. Like,
On Shaq, the last thing that I have that's really great about this game is, Ryan, you mentioned it earlier before we started. Dude, this is 2/3 of blue chips. Like, all you need is Anthony Harper. You got Neon Boudreau, you got Ricky Rowe. You, by the way, have Cheaney, who's like the bad dude of the IU night team, which let's not talk about Bobby Hurley being the point guard on that team. But like, this is half of blue chips. And by the way, Jared, I know you're out there. Like, we're going to keep this going. I have to do the blue chips rewatchable version of this. Like, we've got to do a blue chips one because there's so much good stuff in there.
Well, the funniest thing is that, like, the funniest thing. Oh, do we have to go, Coach?
No.
Okay.
Not even
one of the funniest things about
Coach just lost control. It's Ryan. It's Ryan.
He's done. One of the funniest things. One of the funniest things about that is the IU players who were on IU in blue chips were Eric Anderson, Calbert Cheaney, Keith Smart, Greg Graham, and then Bobby Hurley. We're all in blue chips. They just didn't have like big roles. It's like, it's hilarious when you think about it. And then they took Matt Nover off the IU team and put him on the other team. Like, oh, it was so nice.
I know.
Hey, here's
half
a
of blue
story.
chips is this game right here.
The Frankfurt Gym, Case Arena. I have coached several games in there as an assistant, won a sectional title in there with the Lebanon Tigers when I was a assistant coach at Lebanon. And Western has played there and won the last 2 regular season games in Case Arena. It's always awesome to go in there and coach and play and under the tunnels and all of that. And not just because it's a great high school gym first and foremost, but because of the movie Blue Chips being filmed there. It's also pretty cool to go back and you pull up and you see it looks like a college place. So it's a great place to take high school kids to play and watch a game.
The thing that I love about blue chips, not to step on our future blue chips podcast, but there's a scene in that final game where, like, it's supposed to be in, Southern California. It's like California State or something. Yeah. And like, but behind the bench of the California team of whatever, the Western team is a guy. And so it was obviously shot in Indiana, like it was filmed there.
Yeah.
There's a guy wearing an Indiana bucket, like old oak and bucket t-shirt. And I'm like, first off, like, why did somebody from production pull him? Because like in the movie, why on earth would, I guess, like, it's somebody who's a big Indiana fan who flew out there. But if you're, they traveled. But if I'm traveling to Western to watch Indiana play a first round game, like, I'm wearing my IU basketball shirt. I'm not wearing my old oak and bucket shirt. Like, it's a great little piece that I've always loved about that movie.
Yeah. That movie, like, it's so fun, but it's such a mess. Like, there's so many scenes that are just like so hilarious, but it's, I don't know. I love that movie. I watch it anytime it's on.
All right.
So can I get some more things that
on your list that age?
I got some bad things from this game.
Okay.
Badly. So we are recording this on March 22nd. We are in the midst of a coronavirus scare, which is a real serious problem. So I'm not trying to make light of anything, but I will say, beginning of the game, they go to Andrea Joyce for the only time in the game. They're talking about how Singletary had a virus the night before, and he had to be taken to the hospital for IVs. And I'm thinking to myself, like, under today, like, just watch this right now. It's the weirdest time to watch. Like, oh my God, he's got the virus. Like, he's got coronavirus.
My girlfriend perked up and looked at me when that happened. I'm like, this is years ago. Don't worry. It's
right. So there's that. It was jarring not having a score or a clock on the game. I'm taking notes like 72-74 because, like, I don't know when they're going to show the score again. Like, it's just, that was a great thing. I was also shocked how many long twos there were. Yep. This is just
mid-range jumpers, man.
Yeah, luckily it was mostly LSU, not IU, but like Singletary and Caesar took a bunch of long twos.
Well, to that point, to that point, we got to get the Keystone Light. But let me get back to that point about the long twos. This was the 5th year of the 3-point shot, and the coach's philosophies of the layup or the 3 only is starting to develop, and you're starting to see teams probably in 92, 93 do that. But some of the leftover coaching and stuff is just taking shots. Right now in this day, it's either a 3 or it's a layup or a dunk at the basket. Anything else is really not warranted in the game today. But you see some of that in these 91, 92, 93. When you go back and watch, some of that mid-range game is still left over because of the new strategy. And now to the halftime sponsor, Scott.
Keystone Light.
Keystone Light.
There you go.
I mean, that's classy. A solid. That's
Always
seriously classy. Yeah, that's great. I mean, the last thing that hasn't aged well is no. I mean, we mentioned the Bill Walton thing. It's just great. Bill Walton, I literally laughed out loud when they're like, "Do you think he should come back?" And he's like, "Of course he should come back to college." It's like, of course you're wrong.
He
Bill
still
Walton
has stuff to work on. Like,
it's like, no, he doesn't. But Pat Graham sweaters, like the sweater, like you guys have the chat mob, great. Like the sweater mob should be something that started up on Twitter, like his sweater. There's somebody else like
Brian Evans,
coach. You picked it up.
Brian Evans,
yeah, his sweater. I mean, it is just
horrendous.
That is 93. Like it's so on brand for 93. Like that was 93. Having lived through it, like those things were hot in 93. But wow, it does not age well.
I was probably wearing one of those sweaters
What was the date of the
party I was at?
What was the date of this game? Does anybody know what the date of this game
was?
March
21st, 22nd. Nope.
Yeah, there was snow wherever it was being taped from.
I'm gonna try and figure
Scott,
out what the top song
I do want to know why the 16-year-old lit up when Keystone Light was being played at halftime. The 16-year-old Scott seemed to be really excited about the Keystone Light.
So I was more into Zima in high school. Actually,
okay,
I hate to admit it. I'm just. It's just such a bad beer to be sponsoring halftime of an NCAA game. It was just like, and like Oldsmobile, it's just like these brands. Like, oh yeah, you guys used to be companies that are now out of business. Way to go.
Yeah, I wonder why that happened.
you had bad products.
Yeah.
Ryan, did anything age well or bad for you?
So March 21st, 1992, the number one song in the country was...
I want to guess. Oh, my God. Was it 92, Losing My Religion by REM?
No. It was Save the Best for Last by Vanessa Williams.
I never got... all right.
And then it became Jump by Criss Cross after that. So... And then we were about 3 months away from Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot.
There we go.
Side note on Jump, like if you ever want to be like a recording artist, you should make a song with like Jump or something. So like when they like Van Halen Jump, it's all they play when there's a jump ball at an NBA game. It's like you just need to make a Jump song and you're in for good. Like someone needs to remake like a We Are the Champions because you can get that played all the time too.
Have we gone completely off the rails, Coach? Are you okay?
Yes, we are completely.
No, absolutely.
Coach, bring us back, man.
No, there is no bringing it back.
You doing all right?
I'm searching for the next.
Not me.
I'm searching for the next great question to get you guys going here. Let's talk about historical context. Indiana goes to Sweet 16. 3 years. 3 out of 4 years, I think, is what they had at this time. Went to the Elite Eight, would defeat UCLA to go to the Final Four, where they end up losing to Duke, 81-78, and not so happy with Ted Valentine in that game. If we remember right,
that Ted Valentine had something bad to do with the game.
Just general thoughts of the overall game, and also just this rewatch stuff as we get our shot here before we pass it off to some other crew members for next Friday.
It was a blast. I loved hanging out with you guys on this one. Obviously I've been following the chat mob the whole time. You guys are hilarious about this as well. I think that, it's fun to look back at different eras of basketball, even if it's not an IU game. I mean, obviously it's fun to rewatch an IU game. And this is a game that I watched as a kid as a neutral observer, obviously. I'd never gone to Indiana. I'd never been to Indiana. And then, when I went to IU in 2003, it was obviously a different era of basketball. So it's really cool to go back and look. As a kid who played the way I did in Southern California, I always enjoyed watching Indiana play because of the, high basketball IQ, the ability to, break down a game and attack it and figure out the ways to attack. It was always fascinating to me, the way that they seem to always have the right idea of what to do. And that you saw that. This was the epitome of that from a Bob Knight team. And obviously they had a superstar in Calbert. They had an emerging star in Alan Henderson. But this was a team effort, and everybody was involved on every level. And you faced this Goliath on the other end and figured out a way to not neutralize him, not shut him down, but a way to win despite his greatness. And I think that's the epitome of what Indiana has always been, is just this smart team that can go up against anyone, any individual player, and make it exceptionally difficult for them to do what they want to do. And, that's sort of in the aura of Indiana basketball. And I just thought that this was really fun to watch. A team that, by the way, with that roster, and especially with the roster they had the next year, was certainly championship quality. And just watching them work was a lot of fun. It was a great way to spend a couple hours.
Yeah, I want to dig in just for – go ahead.
I'm just going to throw this to you, and then you could take it any way you want. But Ryan mentioned roster, and I think this roster was, they only played 8 guys, had a guy hurt, and Brian Evans redshirting. But roster matters a lot in college basketball, and hopefully Indiana basketball is getting back to a roster that has some capabilities of doing something. And it's good to remember some IU teams with decent rosters. As we mentioned, everyone came in and did their role. So in comparing, this team can't be compared to what we've been seeing lately. That's just not even close. But how close are we to – and do we need to get back to this as quickly as possible? Can we get back to that? Is it possible for Indiana to get back to something that we see here in the 1992, 93, and so forth? In your opinion, Scott?
Yes, we need to be back here immediately. But I'll answer that question with a yes, and I'm just going to take a turn. Like, I want to go back to the original question on just kind of historical precedent of this game. I saw in the chat, Mom, Andy Stump mentioned something about how, it's a travesty this team didn't win a title. I wouldn't say travesty, but it does, this is something on one of our Crimson Cast podcasts that I wasn't on, but Galen did a really good podcast about kind of the historical, I think with IU Artifacts, the historical just kind of IU history, kind of how we got to where we are now. And the thing that is interesting is, IU is not like North Carolina or Duke. Like, we're in blue blood, but we're a little bit more like UCLA. Like, we kind of go up and down. Even in the night years, you had like the mid 70 run, and then there was a bit of a lull, and then a short one. Then you have 81, then there's a lull, and then you have the 87. And where I look at this as I look back on this era, like what sucks about it is this era was another uptick. You had the kind of Cheaney, Greg Graham years. And the fact they only made one Final Four, to me, that's the travesty. Like, I'm with Andy Stump. Like, they should have won a title. They probably do in 93 if Henderson doesn't get hurt. But we don't know. But the fact they only made titles are still tough because, like, shit happens and it's not, you never know. Sorry. But stuff.
But you have to have so much. You have to have so much luck to win a national title. You really do, and we see it every year.
But the fact they never got to a Final Four, or they only got to one with this team, is kind of stinks. They got about as close to the Elite Eight, but then it's like if this team wins a title, let's say they go back-to-back Final Fours, maybe they go 3 straight Final Fours in this period. I think Knight gets a little more breathing room because then he does take a bit of a lull, which kind of sucked because that's exactly when I went to college. It was 96 to 2000, where it's like, hey, we're not doing great. Maybe just because I always feel like, and I don't want to get into this, Gail and I have done this a million times, but it's like, let's not go down the Knight firing road here. But, if he doesn't get fired, like, he's building that back up. You had Jared Jeffrey, Scott, Sean May is going to come here. Haston stays one more year. Like, you can put this all together, but it's like this was the group that was supposed to bring that next title, and it just didn't happen, and it kind of sucked. And, maybe the way to look at it, too, is like, all right, well, we got the 81 one. Maybe that shouldn't have been a title team, or 87 was a bit lucky, but it's like you can look at 75 and be like, well, May doesn't get hurt there, and we win that title. We win back-to-back. We have back-to-back undefeated seasons with 2 titles. So I just look at this as like, it's just such a missed opportunity because this was maybe one of the best teams since 76 that Knight had ever put together. Like, everything was there. Everything was humming. You had a great player in Cheaney, but he wasn't like, he just distributed so well that it's like, if he wins a title with this team, either this year or the next year, I think the rest of everything plays out differently. Like, it's just an alternate reality where now you have a Knight coach who's won 4 national titles. At that time, he's now head and shoulders above everybody. So Krzyzewski, if he wins this year, Krzyzewski only has 1. But if let's say they don't win this year, he wins. Like, Krzyzewski's got 2. Like, everyone's at 2. Knight has 4. IU now has 6 national titles. We're like tied with Kentucky at that time. Like, we're only behind UC. Like, everything changes, and that's what I look back on this, which sucks.
Well, and think about,
like, damn it.
Think about what it does too. If you win that national title, that those lull years that came that you were talking about after, when you were in college, aren't going to be the same, because that's going to help recruiting on a national level. Because then when you make the Final Four, when you make the championship, people who don't normally see you, and experience what it's like. Oh, that's Indiana. And little kids become fans of that team and then follow them for their whole life. It's a different story. I mean, now everybody's games are on national TV every night, and it's a different calculus. Back then, you made the Final Four, you could see the recruiting rankings the next year, or just a list of recruits that, players that went to those Final Four teams always jumped up. It was a huge benefit to you. Now, I mean, if you want to tune in to find an Indiana game, you can tune in to find an Indiana game every night. So it was a different calculus back then. And I agree with you. I think that things change, certainly, if they win in 92 or 93. I think that you see better players in those kind of down years filling the roles that those teams were missing, maybe, and it gets a little easier. And then I think that, you have a smoother road to that next level. Of course, as you said, Jared Jeffries, Sean May is likely there. There's more guys. I mean, there's a clear succession line there of guys who left the state of Indiana because, and some guys.
Sorry,
didn't
I didn't
want
mean
to
to cut
go
you off. You mentioned Indiana. It's really interesting with this team. The other thing we haven't hit on. Of this team, there's only 3 guys who aren't from Indiana, 2 from Illinois and 1 from Michigan, and Lindemann's from Michigan. So it's like, But, the rest of the team, it's Indiana guys. Like, it's Indiana to Illinois. You have Chris Reynolds from Illinois, Jamal Meeks is Illinois, everyone else is Indiana. Eric Anderson is Chicago. But this is region. Like, this is the region.
And that's the thing is what I was going to say. I was just about to say this is that.
Sorry.
No. I'm fine with you interrupting because that's a great point because it actually feeds into what I was saying. The thing that started to happen in about 2000 and on is the best players in the state of Indiana didn't necessarily stay in Indiana anymore. And if you get all those guys and nobody else, you just get those guys, your program's in a lot better footing than it is now. So, it was during that.
Montross. And then I remember, it was every year, Jason. He went to Arizona.
Gardner,
Jason Gardner. He had a run with it. Everyone was having a run. They were like, "Oh, from Indiana." Great, it's from Indiana. That's been going on for 35 years now. But this is also I look at this team too. This was kind of like the first year with. The team that beat Kentucky with the Watt shot that had Verdell Jones. This is kind of you're we're getting all these guys back. We're going to get them back next year. Next year, we're really going to hum. This was almost a year too early. It's all you're losing is Eric Anderson off this team. It's hey, we made the Final Four. We're bringing everybody back. Now we're going to kick some real butt, next year. And that team doesn't even get to the Final Four again, which is kind of bizarre. Because if we would have done this for real, in 92, I'd be all right, well, no matter what happens this year, next year we're going to just do better than we did. Anything
you
this
feel
year
good
is
about, moving forward.
Yeah.
Well,
it sucks that this is the highlight of this group is this run.
Yeah. It is a bummer. But they were fun to watch though. That was a really fun. I'm jealous of people who got to watch these guys, all the time. When they were around because I didn't.
And the tough thing was I got to watch this growing up, but it's you took it. I don't say you took it for granted. You're we're going to be good all the time. This is this is what you're used to. I expect to see this every year, and then it's it just kind of stopped.
Well, you're absolutely right, Scott. It was great growing up and going to college and seeing that in the 80s for me, and you did take it for granted. Then all of a sudden, in the last few years of Knight, when they were getting beat regularly in the first round. You were okay, but that was a little odd. And then all of a sudden, all the stuff after the coaching change, and it's just been you're grabbing for some of that that was so present for many, many years. And watching a game like tonight, you just saw so many aspects of good basketball. You saw inside play, you saw wing play, you saw good point guards just distributing the basketball. You see collective rebounding. And those are all things that need to get back here to the program as soon as possible. And hopefully the guys and coaches and all that are working that way. But it needs to get here and then stay here because Indiana needs to be a Sweet 16 type team every year and bust out and get back to the Final Four and hang some more banners. That's who Indiana basketball is. And nights like tonight remind us of that. But it was, I made I think I tweeted once from the assembly call about the emotion and the intensity the guys played with too. You could tell it was a together group. Yeah. They really played well together, and that helps them come off of a 14-point deficit. And they weren't pouting, they weren't hanging their heads. But that collectiveness is what the Jersey Indiana has meant in the past, and it was tonight and in tonight's win. But to get back into bit. But that's good to see, and boy, we long for that kind of stuff so bad.
You know what got me, Coach, was how focused they were. Yeah. Like you're right. They always had an idea what they were doing, where they were going. And you saw a couple, like maybe 2 or 3 possessions against the zone where they passed the ball around the perimeter and maybe made a bad pass inside. But they were in attack mode the entire time, and they just had a focused intensity about what they were trying to do, and that they were going to accomplish it no matter what. And it was such a disconnect from today. And you hope you get back to that. You really do. I think
when you combine great coaching with skilled basketball players with great IQ and desire,
smart,
then things happen on the basketball floor. And it's happened in our university. It's happened at others as well. But when you see winning programs, it is talented players who understand the game and a coach who understands the game and puts people in the right positions to play, and then they just play freely. Up 8, down 14, they play somewhat freely. And it's somewhat hard to understand when Knight's always barking at you and threatening the bench. But he got that respect, and those players were tough. And they played that way. And that was a good part of the win tonight, because you get down 14 in a tournament game, man, that's tough, regardless of the amount of time left. So let's preview a little
Coach,
bit of what's –
Coach, I have a question for you.
Sure.
As we look at this tournament, this year's tournament, two-part question. If we would have gotten the number 1 seed in the Southeast Regional, that's the regional that Michigan came out of. Is that a better spot for us? And do you believe that it really was Ted Valentine, or do you just think Duke was a better team that year? Like, is this team not beating Duke no matter where they meet him in the tournament?
No, first of all, I think it ended up being okay because of the just crazy defeat of UCLA. But, you always want to be a 1 seed because that's going to be better. And the way I think Michigan and Ohio State or whoever was in that, there was a 4 and a 6 or something like that. Cincinnati, I don't have the bracket up in front of me. But so that might have been easier, but Indiana did get to the Final Four. What might have been better is to play that second game in the Final Four and get to the championship and play Duke in the championship. But you give Knight a whole week to prepare. Do you want the tougher team with a week to prepare, or with the day to prepare? And the bottom line, when you get to the Final Four, when you get to championship games, those teams they're not flukes, and so. I'm very hesitant. It's easy for me as an IU fan to say it was an official's fault or something else. But Duke, I think it's 50-50. 5 times we play them, 10 times we win 5, and they win 5. It just happened to be they won on that Saturday. Maybe getting a little help from some calls. That's just when you get to the Final Four, that's good basketball, and anyone who wins there deserves it, in my opinion.
Again, you need luck to win a championship. You really do. And you need a team. It's about running into good matchups. It's about running into, maybe a team is off 1 week, maybe a team has an injury. All of that stuff, plays into it. And, you hope you run into a situation where both teams are at their best and you're better than them. But we know that's not always the case. I mean, you never know what's going to happen once that tournament starts. And, there are some times that you can telegraph what's going to happen as soon as the field is released. Like, this team might be better than this team. They just don't match up well against them, and it's, so it's always interesting, but man, it's hard to look back and think, cause I remember that Indiana Duke game. It was a crazy game. And it's hard to think, like, could it have gone the other way? With some better officiating and maybe Indiana hits one more shot, what does that change? And how does that change?
From our point of view, we played chalk the whole way there. We won our first game, then we played the 7 seed, we played the 3 seed, we played the 1 seed, and we played Duke, who was probably the best team in the Final Four. We had the tough. Looking through it, we had the toughest road there. I guess Michigan played well. Michigan got Eastern Tennessee in the first round. In the second round, Cincinnati didn't have to play Kansas in that bracket. They played UTEP, and then Duke. Duke is Duke. They played the chalk all the way too. But it probably should have been Indiana Duke in the finals.
Yeah, it was a solid.
Those are the 2 best teams. It seemed like.
Yep, yeah, for sure. Hey, coming up on.
I will say I was reading. Wait, let me just say one thing real quick before we sort of get to exit. The really interesting thing, I read the article about the game. I went back and found it in the archives, read the article about the game afterwards. And Brown, LSU's coach, said they're going to win the national title. After he's like, I figured that whoever won this game would win the national title. He didn't think anybody could stop Shaq. He's
a bad coach. We can't trust him.
He's a terrible coach. Can't trust him. But and Bob Knight's response was he drunk? Like that was his response. He's like, were his eyes glazed over when he said that? Like, but no, Brown said, he's like, that team is so put together. They're going to win the national championship. And so you guys aren't far off in your assessment of how good that Indiana team was. It's crazy they didn't win the Big Ten. Like I know.
Faltered late. Hey, just real quick, coming up on Assembly Call, we have Assembly Call Radio Thursday night, Friday night at 8 o'clock, IU Louisville 1993 rewatch. And on Sunday at 8 o'clock, IU versus Kent State 2002 Elite 8 rewatch. Details are at assemblycall.com/rewatch. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Remember that because you're an Assembly Call listener, you get 20% off your entire order at homefieldapparel.com with the promo code Assembly20. So if you want a great deal on the most comfortable and unique IU apparel that you'll find anywhere, go to homefieldapparel.com and use the promo code Assembly20 for 20% off your entire order. Okay, guys, this has been a great show. I couldn't ask for better guys to be on this show. Last call. We'll go around the horn. Whatever you want to say, you can say. Scott, we'll start with you since you're our guest. Thoughts on the game? Anything about Indiana basketball? It's yours.
No, first off, I want to thank you guys so much for having me. This has been an absolute blast. I love the fact that we are doing this. Little inside baseball. I do the podcast Crimson Cast with Galen for like 5 years. Like, we should do something kind of like I've been kicking this idea around. Jared came up with this totally on his own, but it's just funny. I've been talking about doing this for a while, so I'm so happy it's getting done. I love that we're doing it. I think that, given that there's no tournament this year, this is awesome. I've been looking forward to this all day. I've been excited to watch the game, excited to do this. So I'm just so happy you guys are doing this. This is awesome. I've had an absolute blast. From the IU point of view, it's everything we talked about. This is a great game to watch, but it's also, again, just a little disappointing because this is 35 years ago. It's kind of one of our last great teams, but we'll get back there. We'll be good. But no, this has been awesome. I appreciate you guys doing this. We'll be doing a couple more of these. I'm doing one next week, the IU Kent State game, which I was at. So I'm excited to do that. But no, Ryan, Coach, it has been an absolute pleasure. You guys do great work. I love the postgame shows you guys do. So please keep up the great work. And to everybody who's listening, just thank you guys for spending time with us. I know that I talk a lot. Ryan talks a lot. Coach did the best he could, but I know it's been a long one, but hopefully it's been fun. So, no, I really appreciate it, guys. It's been awesome.
Ryan, your last call.
Yeah, it's been like herding cats for Coach. I really apologize for the years we've taken off his life.
If he had hair, it'd all be great now.
I know. It'd look like this now. He actually, guys, for those of you who are just tuning in, started
with hair.
Full head of hair. It was thicker than this. No, this was a blast. I had fun rewatching the game. It's cool, as I said earlier, to see different eras of basketball and how teams attacked and how the game has changed. And if you watch games from that era and 5 years after that, 5 years after that, 5 years after that, you'll see different things going on. And it's really impressive. And I thought it was great that I got to be on one of these where there was a legendary player as a collegian in Shaq and then a legendary collegian in Calbert Cheaney as well. It was great that sort of the worlds collided there. And then, of course, Matt Nover and Shaq are in the same one, which is awesome for me as a fan of Blue Chips. But no, it was a ton of fun to do. I loved hanging out with you guys. Scott, thanks for coming on. And Coach, thanks for hosting. It was a lot of fun. And these look backs, we're making the best of a tough situation. And obviously we all wish there was live basketball going on and live college basketball. But if this is what we got, this was pretty dang fun. So, looking forward to the next one.
And for mine, thank you to both of you for joining me. And this is great going back. It is obviously tough times without any Indiana basketball, any tournament basketball games, sports in general. Please take care of each other, and hopefully that we provide you with a little bit of entertainment during this time of struggle in our country. So we'll be back again Thursday for Assembly Call Radio, and then a couple more rewatch shows. We appreciate everyone in the chat mob, Home Field Apparel, everyone that sponsors us and gets a hold of us. It means a lot to us as well, being on the show. And to you two guys, it was a blast. I couldn't ask for two better co-hosts. Sorry about the little flub up on the banner moment, the technology. It's been a while since I've had 19 different tabs open and the Jared technology going on. I think I'm buying Ryan an Apple computer so he can host it at some point. Just take some extra money I have and send him a computer, because it does stress you out a little bit. But it's a lot of fun. Great game to watch. I love the shooting. Always love shooting. Always love defense and toughness. There was no fake hustle tonight as your Indiana Hoosiers defeated the LSU Tigers on their way to Sweet 16 and Final Four. So for the gang, I'm Brian Tonsoni. I'm not even going to hit the post-game audio. Jared said I didn't have to, so we're just going to say goodnight, and we'll see you Thursday night.